Tonight, the province's health minister speaks about a mass COVID-19 outbreak after 3 care home residents die following positive COVID tests. Also,
I don't think the healing even has begun.
We hear from the family of Keesha Bitternose on the second day of her accused killer's trial. Plus,
they were getting hooked up to IVs and dropping like flies.
With a crucial game ahead, we find out if the Riders will be healthy enough to play.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, September 13th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Thanks for joining us. Sam is away tonight. Saskatchewan's health minister says healthcare workers are dealing with a mass COVID-19 outbreak at a Regina long-term care home. Health officials have confirmed every single resident at Extended Care Elmview tested positive, and 3 residents died after their positive test result. The Saskatchewan Health Authority says the causes of death have not yet been confirmed. The care home has been declared an outbreak site. In the past 10 days, those infected include 46 long-term care residents, 2 temporary residents, and 15 staff. About a third of residents have recovered. Health Minister Paul Merriman says the outcome would be much worse if not for a high vaccination rate among the residents.
Shows you how fast it can move. It can still move at a very good pace to be able to move through a facility very quickly. And it could have been 2 or 3 days of people being asymptomatic and nobody knew that they were sick. And by time the first symptoms show up with an individual, it could be all the way through the place.
It does happen, although I would say it's probably pretty rare that we see every resident in a facility, but certainly it can happen, and things can move very quickly, as the minister had the example of. If there are asymptomatic residents, we don't know that there's a positive case, that it could very quickly move through the facility. But having said that, I mean, this is part of our learnings through the pandemic, is that we have adapted and revised all of our protocols to be as responsive as we possibly can and create safe environments for our residents.
The SHA is currently in a co-management arrangement with all 5 extended care homes in the province. It will take full control next month. The health authority says it has enhanced cleaning, increased PPE use, and is limiting visitors in response to the outbreak. A Regina man already convicted of 2 murders is back in court. Dylan Whitehawk is charged with first-degree murder in the death of Keesha Bitternose. He's the last of 3 people charged in her death to stand trial. Jesse Anton was in court today and spoke with the victim's family.
It was so senseless.
Some of Keesha Bitternose's loved ones had to excuse themselves from court Tuesday morning. The testimony from a forensic pathologist too traumatic to hear.
Us as grandparents, we were not supposed to be burying our young kids.
In January 2020, Regina police found Bitternose, a mother of 4, dead in a Cameron Street home. Dylan Whitehawk is accused of first-degree murder, a charge he's pleaded not guilty to. 2 other people have already been convicted of manslaughter in her death, and Bitternose's family says they're still looking for justice.
What about us? What about us mothers? What about us grandmothers? And have to stand back and feel this.
Dr. Andrea Nister told court she found easily 100 or more wounds on Bitternose, including blunt force trauma to her head and multiple stab wounds. The forensic pathologist also said Bitternose could have been shot, but that so many injuries overlapped, it was too tough to tell for sure. Whitehawk's defense lawyer latched onto that uncertainty during Tuesday's cross-examination. He argued the doctor only considered a gunshot as a possibility after she was asked to re-examine her findings by police and the Crown. Whitehawk was convicted of 2 murders earlier this year after 2 separate shooting deaths in late 2019. At the time, Crown attorneys alleged the killings were driven by his desire to climb the ranks of the Indian Mafia gang.
It's so senseless to see our young people caught up in gang life and drugs and killing one another.
Court is expected to hear from a gang expert on Wednesday. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Regina.
A Saskatoon woman says her ex-boyfriend choked her to the point she thought she was going to die. Clinton James McLaughlin is charged with assaulting, choking, and confining his former girlfriend. The CBC's Kendall Latimer has been following that trial.
Clinton McLaughlin's former girlfriend says he choked her several times nearly 2 years ago.
During her testimony, she became emotional, saying, "I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to die."
The woman was dating McLaughlin in 2020. She says in November of that year, he stole her handguns. She says about 1 month later, she believed he was going to give them back. So they got in the car and headed out to his dad's farm east of Saskatoon. She says on the drive, he became aggressive.
She says he was accusing me of cheating on him and that he continued to get pissed off and angry.
She says McLaughlin would not let her leave the vehicle, pulling her back in when she tried to escape. She says he did stop the truck twice to attack her.
She says he bashed my head into the side of the truck.
She told the court that McLaughlin threatened to take away her child, saying he would plant drugs or a loaded gun in her vehicle to get her arrested if she didn't cooperate. She says that he used one hand to hold her jacket and the other to press his fist hard into her throat multiple times.
She says he cut off my air supply with his fist. They drove back to Saskatoon. She says he kept saying, "How are you going to act in front of the kids?" She promised she would act normal because she was scared.
The defense says these allegations are made up, fabricated as part of an ongoing fight about McLaughlin's access to one of her children. But under intense cross-examination, his ex-girlfriend did not change her story. Kendall Latimer, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A woman has died in a fire that involved 2 house trailers in the town of Outlook. It happened early yesterday morning in the north end of town. Flames were shooting out of the 2 trailers when firefighters arrived on scene around 5:30. RCMP say the woman's body was found in one of the trailers. All of the occupants of the second home were able to escape safely. Police are continuing their investigation. The woman's name has not been released. The stabbing rampage at James Smith Cree Nation and Weldon put 17 people in hospital. All but 4 have been discharged now. The health authority says the remaining patients are in stable condition. The stabbing attacks also left 10 dead. The 2 brothers accused in the attacks also died. The community says this trauma is not their first. And as Olivia Stefanovich reports, the community wants to make sure the cycle of trauma ends with this generation.
The attacks occurred in the north, in the village, and in the south.
House after house, victim after victim, a rampage tore through.
So we had attacks all across the map here, and this is a large area.
Stealing lives, upending others.
Lana was a beautiful person. She was so friendly and kind and loving.
Chief Robert Head of Peter Chapman First Nation, one of 3 bands that make up James Smith Cree Nation, lost his cousin Lana and her partner Christian.
He did everything in the community. He was involved in all of our sports days, and he was involved in our powwows.
With such immense loss, life struggles to find its balance. Together, they leave behind 10 children.
Really hurting to see my grandchildren without a mother now.
But in this tight-knit community, a resolve they must come together to carry on.
My heart hurts today. You know, I was angry, but forgiveness, I have to forgive.
Even if the pain adds yet another layer of trauma.
When I heard about it, I was driving and I had to stop, you know,
Though there are few answers, this former Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner sees a link to residential schools, a legacy of trauma that pierces through generations.
If their parents didn't go and they were impacted directly as children, there's still that intergenerational trauma after for those that didn't go.
Upwards of 80% of us have relatives that are from Indian residential school experiences.
With so few options, Chief Head says people look for ways to numb the pain.
Nowadays, alcohol is not alone. The one drug that has sort of rose up above all others is that crystal meth. Like, that drug is very, very dangerous. I can't believe how fast it creeped into our First Nations, and it took control of all of our young people that have tried it.
More than anything, he says, the community needs to pull together for their young people.
So how does the community heal from this?
Well, the First Nations, we follow our cultural ways first and foremost, so our sweat lodges and our healing circles and our elders.
He's also appealing to the provincial and federal governments for funding to build a healing center for long-term trauma.
Because this is unprecedented. This is like the worst tragedy in First Nations country all across Canada.
A community forever changed by a tragedy its members are determined to overcome. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, James Smith, Cree Nation.
Well, one thing you cannot call the Riders this season is uneventful. For the second time this year, a virus rifled through the locker room, affecting most of the team. This time, though, it was not COVID-19. The coach says doctors believe it was the highly contagious Norwalk virus, which slammed most players and staff on the team, including the entire offensive line, just before their game in Winnipeg on Saturday. A game they lost 54-20.
It's nothing like I've ever experienced before. You know, I for surely have never seen anything like that in my life. I've been around football a long time. I've played a long time, and I've never seen anything like that. I've never experienced that before. Everything from getting an IV 40 minutes before the game to the worst feeling I've ever had.
That was as proud as I've been of a team in a long time. You know, they gutted it out. And win, lose, or draw, not one of them stopped playing hard. Not one of them complained. You know, they were getting hooked up to IVs and dropping like flies, but they just kept showing up.
The majority of players have recovered from the virus and are good to go for Friday night's game against Edmonton. However, QB Cody Fajardo left practice today to go to the hospital to be with his wife, who gave birth. The baby boy, already named Luca Charles, will be the Fajardo's first child. Well, there's now a cancer clinic just for children in Regina. There you go. The new Pediatric oncology unit was unveiled today at Regina General Hospital. It features bright colors and large exam rooms with enough space for children and their parents. There are special infusion chairs that provide comfort during chemotherapy, as well as other state-of-the-art technology. More than 100 children and teens from southern Saskatchewan are expected to use the clinic for cancer treatment and monitoring. The Hospitals of Regina Foundation came up with $1 million for the project. Well, our sunny days have turned gray and the temperatures have turned cool. The trees are even starting to show their color changes. Fall is certainly in the air, but is this just false fall with a return to warmer weather on the way? Stay tuned. Meteorologist John Sauter has your outlook on your forecast when we come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln, making back to busy easy.
Well, a chillier, cloudier day for us province-wide. Quite the departure from the last few days. Meteorologist John Sauter joins us now with a look at our full forecast. John?
Well, thanks, Ethan. We're going to start today with a look at some afternoon temperatures across the province. And, you know, the daytime high, the normal daytime high in Regina now is 18, only at 13 at 4 p.m. today. And a lot of that has to do with the showers that were moving through at the time. 16 Estevan, 15 in Yorkton, and 16 in Moose Jaw. And some 18s here as well, which is, like I say, pretty close to normal. But 13 in Regina, there are the showers that were moving through. Kind of stopped raining at about 3 o'clock, but noon today it was raining, and that's that band of showers moving through and then off to the northeast. So not done yet. We're going to see all of this kind of as scattered showers moving from west to east across the province tonight. No warnings or watches in effect for Saskatchewan, but just on the Alberta side of the border, we've got this air quality advisory through much of southern Alberta, the foothills, and all the way out to the coast in southern BC, and that's due to fires fires in the northwest U.S. and in British Columbia, of course. All right, Futurecast. We're going to see a couple things going on here. A lot of cloud cover tonight. You can see scattered showers not just in the south, but in parts of northern Saskatchewan as well. And the trend tomorrow through Wednesday will be for the scattered showers to kind of drift off to the east and the clearing to start happening on into the evening hours. And by that time, a lot of this rain is off into southern Manitoba. It's from a warm front attached to a low pressure system south of the border in the Dakotas and Montana. We'll see some cloud around on Thursday morning, but generally a brighter day on Thursday through the day with generally a sun-cloud mix. All right, your forecasts for tonight then. We still have that chance of showers across the south and in the southeast, including Regina. We're looking at single-digit lows. Same with Saskatoon. Double digits, though. Kindersley breezy and 11. Still a chance of showers, about 30% in Swift Current. And then up to the north, we're looking at showers overnight in 12 in La Ronge, but just partly cloudy skies and 6 in Uranium City. And pretty nice temperatures. You think of the normal, around 18, 20 tomorrow in La Ronge, and you'll see some afternoon sunshine after some clearing and after some morning showers. 22 in Kindersley, Saskatoon at 21, Swift Current at 18 tomorrow. And then as we move to the southeast, Regina, a very seasonal 17, and still some afternoon showers before things start to clear up in the evening hours. All right, long range, we'll start with Regina. Pretty seasonal temperatures going toward the weekend. And on the weekend, Sunday, we start to see some showers, possibly thunderstorms by Monday. And then looking at Saskatoon, a bit of a different weekend. The storms may happen on Saturday with a sun-cloud mix Sunday and back into a rainy start to next week.
The Queen's coffin has been flown to London from Scotland and has arrived at Buckingham Palace. Tomorrow, a procession will escort the Queen to Westminster Hall to lie in state, and members of the public will have a chance to view the coffin before the state funeral on Monday. CBC's Thomas Daigle reports on today's events from London.
One last time, Scots lined the roads to say goodbye as the Queen made her final trip home. Elizabeth's coffin draped in the Royal Banner of Scotland, with her family watching, and Princess Anne there to accompany the coffin. The band of the Royal Regiment of Scotland played a final rendition of God Save the Queen before the plane took off bound for London. In the British capital, the Yarwood family came early, a chance to bow their heads once the hearse would pass by.
I never saw the Queen in real life, so be able to pay our last respects to her, I think that's most important.
In Northern Ireland, a region divided over whether the British monarch should be head of state, Charles and Camilla arrived for the first time in their new roles.
It really means a lot to welcome the new king, to sympathise with him on the death of his mother.
The monarch met with political leaders, including Michelle O'Neill from the nationalist party Sinn Féin, with historical ties to the Irish Republican Army.
Played a great role here in terms of reconciliation and building our peace, so it's the end of an era for sure.
The king later reflecting on years of sectarian violence and his mother's concern.
She never ceased to pray for the best of times for this place and its people.
At a Royal Air Force base in London, the plane carrying Elizabeth's coffin touched down, beginning a carefully choreographed journey through the capital, where the Queen will lie in state until her funeral next Monday. All along the route, signs of emotion on a gloomy night, as Londoners got their first chance to say their final goodbye. Tonight, the coffin arrived at Buckingham Palace, Elizabeth's best-known home, where she'll rest one last night. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, London.
And now that there is a new monarch, there's a renewed sense of hope among some Indigenous communities. They're optimistic that King Charles shares some of their values and he'll help Canada meet treaty obligations. CBC's Cameron McIntosh reports.
That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today.
A new monarch,
And for many who view the Crown-Indigenous relationship as more than a relic of the past, hope for a new start.
We have a direct relationship with the Crown, and that has never been respected because of the state of Canada.
As a young elected chief, Mark Hill of Ontario's Six Nations is hoping the King will influence Canada to live up to treaty obligations.
Maybe King Charles will come forward with a new vision and a new way of thinking when it comes to the relationship of Indigenous people.
Often during the Queen's trips here, Indigenous leaders accused Canada of falling short, a legacy of inequality, attempted assimilation, and broken promises.
This Queen, while having a very long reign, didn't do very many things for Indigenous communities.
Yegon Sinclair is a professor of Indigenous studies.
Our relationship with the Crown means a lot, and there's still hope there that the Crown will build on that relationship.
Charles has shown an interest in some areas of Indigenous concern: the environment, climate change, youth leadership.
I know that our visit here this week comes at an important moment.
Earlier this year, he spoke of the importance of reconciliation.
With Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples across Canada committing to reflect honestly and openly on the past and to forge a new relationship for the future.
But some don't hear much in those words. Manatuk Thompson is an Inuit knowledge keeper and former politician.
I feel that the monarchy has to end now with the Queen.
I like Prince Charles. I've met him on a couple occasions already.
Manitoba Métis President David Chartrand is optimistic. He says it was Queen Victoria who urged Canada to negotiate an end of hostilities with the Métis. An example, he says, that can be applied today.
From our perspective, it's a very important role that the Crown does play and continues to play.
While Charles has spoken about the importance of reconciliation and the need for a new relationship, just how big a role the new king sees for himself in it is not clear. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, after a cloudy day with some showers in Regina, a cloudy night tonight. By midnight, we're just going to see temperatures around 14, a southeast wind at 25 to 35. But like I say, generally cloudy conditions, and that will last on into the morning hours. Temperature doesn't do much, 13 first thing in the morning at 9 a.m., and it'll be breezy at the bus stop. East winds at 20 to 30. Now, in Saskatoon, we're also looking at cloud cover and very consistent temperature trends, around mid-teens for overnight lows. And then as we head into the early morning, 14 degrees, southeast winds at 20 to 35, with a bit of a cloudy start or a sun-cloud mix for Saskatoon tomorrow. Ethan?
All right, thanks very much, John. Ottawa has announced Monday will be a statutory holiday out of respect for Queen Elizabeth's funeral, but that only affects federal employees in this province. Federally regulated workplaces, such as banks and airlines, don't have to follow suit, and the provincial government says it's proclaiming a day of commemoration, but not a public holiday. Saskatchewan isn't alone with that decision. Ontario also says Monday will be a day of mourning, but not a provincial holiday. In comparison, Nova Scotia, PEI, and New Brunswick have all declared Monday a stat holiday, closing schools and government offices. Regina MP Andrew Scheer will have a new title when politicians reconvene in Ottawa on Monday. Scheer has been appointed official opposition House Leader under newly chosen Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. In a statement, Scheer thanked Poilievre and says he's honored to take on the role. He says he and the Conservative opposition are ready to fight tax hikes and stop inflation. Scheer previously served as leader of the official opposition. And that is it for us tonight. For news at any time, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or /Saskatoon. You can also subscribe to our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn Reed and John Sauter will be back with more local news tonight at 11. Thanks so much for watching us this evening, and have a great night.